Hello again, my loyal listeners. This is your evil black bunny speaking. I know it's been a while since I've put up a video, but you can't blame me. Putting up 3 videos every week for all of October does take a bit out of you, even though I did most of them ahead of time. Now then, tonight is election night here in America, so to distract myself from any oncoming stress, I have decided to read a few little pasta bites, or short story bites, as they're called, on a lovely little subreddit called Short Scary Stories. Clever name, I know. Now, shut off the lights, turn up the volume, and ignore the biting at your ankles. They just want to play. Laugh tracks. Most sitcom laugh tracks have been recorded in the 50s, which in itself doesn't seem like anything at all before you start thinking about it. Really thinking about it. A guy who was 20 in the year 1955 would be 77 in the year 2012. Considering that most people that you hear on laugh tracks are adults of different ages, it can be assumed that most of them would be at least that age, but by all odds, older. You're hearing dead people laugh. Confessions by Candelabra, a poem. Each of these candles burns with a tale, and since you have asked, I will now unveil that this candle here is for dear Mr. Bode, who was chained down in my well as the rains overflowed. And this candle here is for poor puzzled Grace. They found all her pieces, though I kept her face. Let this candle shine for Madame Von Rose, whose eyeballs did sparkle so fine as they froze. And this candle smokes like old John Bailey Hughes, who sizzled and shrieked as he went up my flue. And this one's for Nathan, while this one's for Ned, the twins who, I found, could not exchange heads. This next to last candle is for Sally Celeste, whom one horse took east as one took her west. But now let me work. While I talk, the clock ticks. Down a dark cellar, time does play tricks. We'll both share the glow of this very last wick, or at least you shall, till I lay the last brick. Unconditional Love. Are those bruises on your neck? I flush as I rearrange my scarf to hide the embarrassing marks. Dylan was especially rough last night, and while pleasurable, it made me so sore. It's nothing, I say to the cashier. Honey, if your husband is hurting you, maybe you shouldn't stay. I don't know how to tell the lady it was my fault. How I had left him chained up too long, and he hadn't eaten in days. He was just so hungry last night. He couldn't help it if he had bitten me. Besides, I had pulled out his teeth anyway, so it didn't hurt. That was the first time he tried leaving me. Last night was the second, so I cut off all his fingers. But I did it while he was unconscious from the pills. I didn't want to see my poor baby suffer. I love him too much. Footprints in the snow. The snow finally stopped, leaving a blanket of white around my house. No work, no school, no roads. That's why I had to let the man stay a while. I mean, who would send a poor stranger back out into the cold after he'd come to the door for help? He was shivering, wet from the recent snowfall. Curious, however, that I didn't notice any footprints leading up to the house as I let the man in. It must have been a trick of the light. The man is so strange. I feel him watching me, but when I glance back at him, he's just staring straight ahead. He doesn't talk. I don't think I've seen him eat. He just sits there, shivering, his hair and clothing dripping wet. The missing footprints are starting to bother me, so I check by the front door again. No snow's fallen since he arrived, but I still don't see any footprints. Wait. I was wrong. There are footprints. Just not coming from the road. I check around the side of the house, and sure enough, there they are. My eyes follow them from my porch, across the backyard, just past the trees, and then they stop at the old well that's been boarded up since I moved in. Squinting my eyes, I can see that the well has been opened. Behind me, I hear a steady drip, drip, drip. Nooks and crannies. My room is a mess. The space under my bed is cluttered with boxes of used art supplies, out-of-date magazines, board games with missing pieces, random junk that I just can't seem to part with. The closet door can barely close shut because of the massive heap of clothing and shoes that spill forth. An errant sock or shirt scattered on the surrounding carpet like ash dispersed from a volcanic eruption. I used to rationalize that there was a bright side to living in a constant state of disarray. No space for things to go bump in the night, so no worries, right? But the paper-thin woman with hollowed-out eyes still has plenty of places to hide. Don't think. When it's late at night and your bedroom is just a clump of silhouettes, what do you do if you can't sleep? Since everything but your mind is occupied, you have to rely on your imagination. Your thoughts, however, can get away from you rather quickly and easily. Maybe it's a creaking sound from your bedroom door. Maybe it's a light puff of warm air uncomfortably close to your face. Maybe that pile of unclean clothing that you've been staring at for far too long is beginning to resemble something more sinister, something more mobile. You can play these office mind games as long as you want, and in many ways, they are. Just remember one thing. The brain can easily be programmed to make almost anything second nature. So, the more you imagine things, the more realistic they'll become, and the harder it will be to make them stop. crashes. No one ever examines the footage of after a car wreck. No one ever watches the news and pauses when the attractive female reporter is at the scene of the crash, right in front of the wrecked car, talking directly to the audience. No one ever looks at the crowd of people gathered around the twisted, wrecked remains. And when they do, they never notice the man in the long, tan coat with the red shirt underneath. And if they do, they never think he's strange. This man goes unnoticed, just like the causes of some car crashes remain unsolved. All right, I think that's enough for one night. So, my lovely listeners, I certainly hope that you enjoyed this second edition of Pasta Bites. I can assure you there will be more regular pastas to come in the following days. But for now, remember, they just want to play.